This is the story of Suhu Kim, who suddenly reincarnates into the worst character of a novel. But with his system, he begins to change this world. Alongside his cute little pets, he rises to become the most powerful person in that world. The main character's name is Kim Suho, known in this world as Lord Frendra. An ordinary civil engineer is about to reshape the entire world, and he has only one goal: how to turn all this land into money. So, at the beginning of the story, one night in a medieval town, a strange message appeared in front of Lloyd. It said he was chosen and could make a wish. Another message congratulated him. Lloyd was lying on the ground and staring at the message with an unhappy face. The system told him that he had become a character inside a novel called Knight of Iron and Blood. He remembered this story because he read it just yesterday. But Lloyd was confused. He did not understand what wish they were talking about or what he was supposed to do next. Then a strange idea came to his mind. He thought that maybe he had been sent into another world, just like in many web novels. The man realized that he was lying on a road that leads to a city. He did not know why he woke up there. He quickly stood up and felt cold because of the night air. When he touched his face, he noticed something strange. His mouth looked small and bent in a funny way. Suddenly, a red system message appeared. It said that his mouth became crooked because he slept on the road. Feeling annoyed, he waved his hand at the message and fixed his mouth. Then he spoke to himself and said that he really had entered the body of a novel character. Now he wanted to know who he became in this story. While thinking, someone called out, "Mr. Lloyd." He turned around slowly. A strange man was walking toward him. The man had silver hair that shined like moonlight. A golden sword handle could be seen near his waist. He wore blue clothes and looked calm and serious. The man told him that he had been searching for him for a long time and asked him to return to the mansion. This person was Xavier, the main character of the novel. When Lloyd realized this, cold sweat ran down his face. He remembered Xavier clearly from the story. In the future, Xavier would become a famous sword master known across the continent. But right now, he was only a knight serving a noble family. Suddenly, Lloyd understood the truth. He realized that he had become Lloyd Fronta, the troublemaker character from the novel. He shouted in shock inside his head. Xavier looked at him calmly and said that he only called him by his name, not a troublemaker. Then Xavier smiled slightly and said that Lloyd judged himself correctly. Soon, they arrived at a large two-story mansion. Inside, Xavier added wood to the fireplace to make the room warm. Lloyd sat on a chair wrapped in a blanket. Xavier then explained what happened earlier. He said that Lloyd had been drinking since dinner time. He broke dishes in the tavern, became emotional, and then fell asleep on the road while returning home. Hearing this, Lloyd thought to himself that this kind of behavior matched the reputation of the prankster Lloyd. Xavier continued talking and said that the Baron was worried about his son. That was why he sent Xavier to find Lloyd. He added that even if Lloyd caused trouble, it would still be sad if the Baron's son died alone on the street. Lloyd noticed that Xavier spoke in a very calm and fearless way. Lloyd touched the floor and wished it was warm, like modern heated floors. But then he remembered that this was a medieval fantasy world. Xavier turned around and told Lloyd to rest. He also said that tomorrow morning he would report everything to the Baron. Lloyd quickly asked him not to tell, but Xavier immediately refused. He was firm and would not change his decision. As Xavier opened the door to leave, Lloyd suddenly asked with a strange smile if their house had enough lights. Xavier closed his eyes in confusion, said nothing, and shut the door. Lloyd lay quietly and thought to himself that he already knew this story. In his real world, he had finished reading this novel on his phone just yesterday. He clearly remembered what would happen next. In the novel, the Baron and his wife were tricked by bad people. They lost all their money and later ended their own lives. After that, Lloyd became completely broken. He kept drinking, begging for alcohol, and finally died while coughing blood. Thinking about this future, Lloyd threw away the blanket and shouted in anger. He felt that even after becoming a noble, his life was still useless like before in Korea. He thought about the strange system message again and wondered why it brought him into this body. Morning arrived. The town near the mountains was bright under the sunlight. The white walls of the mansion shined beautifully. Xavier walked calmly behind a woman in a white dress. She was Lloyd's mother, Marbella Frenna. She was angry and talking about what Lloyd did in the tavern last night. Lloyd stood there with messy clothes and felt guilty. When his mother asked him to apologize, he did not wait and immediately agreed. He scratched the back of his head and accepted responsibility for what this body had done. Marbella and even Xavier opened their eyes wide in surprise. A system message appeared, showing their reaction. On the street, people were doing their daily work. One man was loading straw onto a cart. When he noticed Lloyd and Xavier walking toward him, he became scared and quickly hid behind the cart. Other people on the street also became nervous. They moved away and avoided looking at Lloyd. Lloyd felt more and more confused. A small child looked at Lloyd with curiosity. But someone quickly pulled the child inside the house and shut the window. Then a system message appeared again and told Lloyd that the villagers hated him. Lloyd calmly replied that he had already noticed that. Lloyd walked with his hands in his pockets and asked Xavier why he was following him everywhere. Xavier kept his hand on his sword and replied that the Baron ordered him to watch Lloyd and make sure he did not cause trouble again. Lloyd looked surprised and asked if he really needed to be guarded. Xavier calmly answered that it was not to protect Lloyd, but to protect the town people from him. Hearing this, Lloyd felt awkward and guilty. He looked around and realized that first he needed to fix his bad image. Otherwise, no one would even give him food if he ever needed help. Then he stopped himself and decided that solving his family's debt was more important. He started dreaming about living in luxury as the future owner of the land. Then he suddenly thought about game systems and asked in his mind if there were any special powers or cheats. Right away, a blue window appeared in front of him. Lloyd was shocked to see that this world really had skills. But when he checked his skill list, he became disappointed. The only skills shown were useless and drunkard. Angry and frustrated, Lloyd tried to hit the floating window. Xavier, who could not see it, looked at him with confusion and embarrassment. Lloyd continued walking forward. Xavier called him and asked where he was going. Lloyd turned around slowly and said nothing. There was a tavern beside them. Xavier stopped near the door and pointed at it. He asked Lloyd if his apology earlier was just a lie. Lloyd quickly tried to deny it. Xavier stayed silent for a moment. Finally, Xavier closed his eyes and told Lloyd to go inside. Lloyd slowly opened the door and looked into the tavern with an apologetic face. Xavier stood behind him and felt something strange. Since yesterday, Lloyd seemed like a completely different person. Inside the tavern, the place was badly damaged. Tables and chairs were broken. Cracks were on the walls, and decorations were damaged. Lloyd sat heavily on a chair and loudly announced that he came to apologize for his past actions. Xavier watched this scene in shock. The bald tavern owner took a fighting position, ready to defend himself. A system message appeared and showed this reaction. Lloyd looked at the owner and nervously asked him to calm down. He thought that maybe people were acting like this because they were not used to him speaking politely. So Lloyd quickly changed his attitude and asked for forgiveness in a rough and careless way. Right after that, another system message appeared and said that his behavior was inappropriate. The bald tavern owner was sweating. He bowed again and said in a shaky voice that everything was fine and that Lloyd did not need to apologize. Lloyd stayed silent and looked at him in surprise. Later, Lloyd and Xavier crossed a small bridge under the bright sky. Lloyd noticed that even after the apology, the tavern owner still looked unhappy. Xavier explained the reason. He said that all the broken plates and furniture were bought with hard-earned money. Because of that, only money compensation could truly solve the problem. Lloyd felt uncomfortable after hearing this. He knew that his family already had many debts. Paying compensation was not easy. At the same time, he understood that without solving the debt problem, he would never gain the trust of the people. Xavier added another sad detail. He said that the tavern owner's mother was also sick. Lloyd remembered how cold the tavern was and how weak the fireplace looked. While walking on the cold ground, Lloyd kept thinking about how difficult winter life must be for old people in this world. Suddenly, Lloyd stopped walking. Xavier went a few steps ahead. Lloyd stared into the air with wide eyes. Then, an idea suddenly hit him. It felt like a light turned on in his head. His mind became clear. He started imagining a heating system for floors. He realized that if he could create floor heating in this world, people would surely want to buy it. Lloyd remembered his past life. He was a civil engineer. He remembered working at construction sites, carrying heavy materials, and building structures day and night. He also remembered building things during his army service. He smiled and understood something important. Lloyd Fronta never had such dreams, but Kim Suho could do this. This was his chance. Lloyd became confident. He believed that this idea could help him pay off all the Barron family's debts. With new energy, Lloyd turned around and told Xavier to go back to the tavern. He loudly said that they were about to receive their first job. At that moment, a system message appeared. It says, "Your real journey begins now." A new system is activated. RP system. Relationship points. He can earn these points. Lloyd doesn't fully understand what RP means. So he looks at Xavier suspiciously. His impression score with Xavier is already very low. Still, Lloyd decides to try something. He looks at Xavier and says, "You're looking very handsome today." Xavier freezes. And just like that, his impression drops even further. Before things get worse, Lloyd decides to stop. They step outside again. Then Lloyd prepares a contract for the bar owner. "I'll build you a heating system," he says, "and I'll pay for all the damage I caused. Just sign here." But as expected, no one trusts a word he says. The bar owner even uses a mind wall skill to protect himself from possible manipulation. Now Lloyd has no other choice. So he switches tactics and starts intimidating him. Under pressure, the bar owner finally signs the contract. Lloyd smirks. No matter how dirty it was, he just secured his first deal. As they walk out, Xavier confronts him. "Why did you threaten him to sign? That's wrong." Lloyd looks at him calmly and replies, "Because of my past actions, everyone sees me as a thug. If I suddenly act honest, no one will believe me." Xavier is surprised. Since when did Lloyd start talking so logically? Then Lloyd says, "No matter what, I'll make that man and his mother happy. Because happiness is the real foundation of making money." Without wasting time, he picks up a shovel and starts digging the ground. Using scraps and materials from his house, he begins building the system. But his body isn't keeping up. He gets exhausted quickly. Xavier stops him. Because this is the first time he's seen Lloyd actually work. Every part of Lloyd's body aches. But he refuses to stop. He has to keep going. He tries cutting wood. As he lifts the axe, he almost collapses from exhaustion. But at the last moment, Xavier catches him. He takes the axe from Lloyd's hand, then tosses the logs into the air, and with a single skill, cuts every piece into perfect shape. It's flawless. Exactly what you'd expect from someone destined to become a great sword master. But instead of saying thank you, Lloyd looks at him and says, "Can you help me dig the ground too?" Xavier just stares at him, thinking, instead of thanking me, he's asking me to do more work. Well, that's exactly the kind of person Lloyd is. Still, Xavier is curious. What is he trying to build? That curiosity pulls him in, and he decides to help. The two of them begin digging rapidly. Finally, after a full week of hard work, the construction is complete. The room is finished. Lloyd quietly places his logo on the wall, with pride. In the end, this house is just a promotion. And when the bar owner and his mother step inside, they're stunned, warm, comfortable. For the first time, they can truly relax. The bar owner is deeply grateful. It feels almost like magic. He brought a smile back to his mother's face. Xavier watches all of this in disbelief. There's no doubt now. Lloyd is a completely different person. He can hardly believe this is real. And somehow, that makes him feel happy too. At that moment, Xavier's impression of Lloyd increases by 2 points. Lloyd now has 36 RP. And for the first time, he smiles. He spent a lot of money building this. But it doesn't matter. This house is just a promotion. However, even after the room's success, Lloyd struggles to convince others. He offers a 10% discount on construction, but the villagers are still afraid to trust him. At one point, he even tries to intimidate them into signing contracts. But suddenly, someone calls his name. It's his father, Arcus Frentra. His impression of Lloyd? -20. Back at the mansion, during dinner, his father asks, "What are you planning this time?" Lloyd replies calmly, "The bar owner gave me an order for a heating system, and I completed it." His father frowns. Don't lie to people who won't tolerate lies. Lloyd is about to leave, but his father stops him and says, "I know our family's situation, but don't worry. I'll handle everything." Those words, Lloyd has heard them before. In his past life. Back then, he believed everything would be fine. But now, he knows the truth. It was all a lie. So he walks away and quietly says, "Don't give up. I'm with you." As he walks forward, he runs into two men. One fat, one thin. Their names, Mythloaf and Shiloh. They pass by him, without even greeting him. A clear insult. But then Lloyd remembers. They're loan sharks. The two of them head straight into the Baron's office and begin speaking in a disrespectful tone. You have 5 days left to repay your debt. If you fail, we won't stay silent. Then Shiloh adds, why stay quiet? Why not just sell a few things from your mansion? Lloyd overhears everything, and in that moment, he realizes this might be his opportunity. Back in his room, he starts thinking. After increasing Xavier's impression, he had earned 36 RP points. But the question is, where should he use them? Just then, the system responds. You can use RP to upgrade your skills. A full body scan begins. As the system analyzes him, it searches for skills that match his needs, and also unlocks new ones. Then the system says, you have a brain. Lloyd frowns. Was that really necessary? I'm a scholarship student with good grades. Based on his existing knowledge, he unlocks 2 skills, basic measurement and basic design. Since he has enough RP, he acquires both. The first skill activates. Now he can take precise 3D measurements of anything. The second skill activates. With just his mind, he can create and visualize designs in the air. These abilities are exactly what he needs to build his future projects. Still, he thinks, it would be even better if I had knowledge to build large machines or the power to summon something powerful. Suddenly, the system replies, that is possible. A random draw option appears. Through it, he can summon fantasy species, but it requires RP points. And right now, he only has 1 point left. Lloyd smirks. If it's a fantasy species, it could work like a massive machine. Now his goal is clear. Collect as many RP points as possible, because only then can he summon something powerful. And to do that, he must improve his relationships. Meanwhile, Mythloaf is speaking to the Baron. If you don't have the money to repay your debt, I know a place where your wife and your maids can be sold for a good price. The Baron freezes. He says nothing. Shock. Humiliation. Then suddenly, Lloyd steps forward and places his hand on the Baron's shoulder. Calmly, he says, just because you're a creditor doesn't mean you can insult people. Mythloaf immediately steps back. Who do you think you are? Then he realizes. This is the Baron's troublemaker son. He smirks. When elders are speaking, children shouldn't interfere. But before he can finish, Lloyd cuts him off. Can you show me your invitation letter? Both of them pause. Confused. What is he trying to say? Lloyd steps forward and says, according to Article 3 of the Kingdom's Noble Law, every noble has the right to protect their interests and property within their territory. He continues, entering a noble's land without an invitation is considered trespassing. Hearing this, they scoff. What nonsense are you talking about? We've never heard of such a law. Lloyd calmly replies, all right then, let's verify it. He calls out, Xavier. Then he adds, coldly, cut off the hands of the trespassers. Mythloaf immediately reacts. Do you want to take this to court? Lloyd smirks. I told you we'll verify it together. Let's see whose side the court takes. Now clearly irritated, they back off and leave. But Lloyd's father is shaken. What you did, this won't calm things down. Lloyd places a bag of money on the table. This is the down payment for the heating system. It's not enough, but it'll keep things going for now. His father warns him, don't force money out of people. At that moment, Xavier steps in. Please don't worry. I've been keeping a close eye on Master Lloyd. Trusting Xavier's judgment, the Baron decides to observe for now. Later, as they walk outside, Xavier asks, how does someone like you know about laws like that? Lloyd replies casually, I already knew. I read it in the novel. He recalls, after the Baron and his wife died, those same 2 men tried to sell their bodies. That's when Xavier used that very law to defeat them. And when the case went to court, Xavier was declared innocent. Lloyd smiles to himself. Knowing the story really is an advantage. Then he pauses. Why hasn't the system said anything yet? As if responding, the system activates. The Baron's impression of you has increased by 6 points. Reward, 60 RP. This is exactly what Lloyd was waiting for. Now, he can finally summon a fantasy species. That night, Lloyd heads to a training ground near his house. He looks around. No one is there. Perfect. He activates the random draw. Suddenly, magic fills the air. Strange gates begin to appear. It looks incredible, but something feels off. The magic seems too small, and from within, a weird sound echoes. Then, something emerges. A tiny, adorable creature. Lloyd's face drops. He was expecting a massive beast, but instead, he got a hamster. This is a complete waste of RP, he mutters. A total failure. Hearing that, the hamster looks heartbroken. It tries to communicate, and somehow, Lloyd can understand it. The hamster insists. It has special abilities. So Lloyd tells it, "All right, show me." The hamster chews something and spits out a small piece of paper. Lloyd picks it up. It's a manual. It explains how to take care of the creature, along with a set of sunflower seeds. Red seeds. Make it grow larger for 12 hours. Blue seeds. Shrink it back to normal size. 2 seeds equals 1 RP. Lloyd decides to test it. He feeds it a red seed. If it grows to human size, it might actually be useful. But the moment it eats the seed, something insane happens. It starts growing and growing until Lloyd stumbles backward in shock. This thing isn't human-sized. It's over 10 meters tall. It's looking down at Lloyd, smiling arrogantly. Its name is Padong, and it has 3 abilities. Diggy, it can dig through the ground effortlessly. Ground Harmony, it can perfectly level the terrain. Pouch, it can chew and process anything, like gum. Lloyd stares at it. Seeing this, Lloyd feels relieved. Now his big machine problem is solved. But there's one issue. He can't let anyone see his pet. If people find out, they'll start suspecting him. So he comes up with a plan. I'll carry a sketchbook and tell everyone I'm a genius inventor. He grins. I'm way too smart for this world. But then, a new problem appears. How will he get workers? Lloyd calls the Baron's army. He announces, "From now on, whatever we do it with safety first." The soldiers look confused. They don't understand what he's talking about. Lloyd gets irritated. These people get paid for doing nothing. But now, he's going to use them. He gives them a strict order. Listen carefully. You are soldiers. You follow commands. Then he points at the soil. I dug all of this last night. With my own hands. Of course, Padong did it in just 30 minutes. Lloyd continues. We're going to improve this place. This is a heating room construction project. For now, move all this soil to the construction site. Hearing this, the soldiers' faces drop. Exactly as Lloyd expected. But just then, someone calls out to him. A man approaches. This is Frontier's senior knight, Newman. He looks at Lloyd and asks, "What are you doing with the Baron's army?" Lloyd had expected this. In this estate, there are 3 knights. First, Newman. Then, the Baron himself. And finally, the main character, Xavier. But Newman is not what he seems. When things start falling apart in the estate, he's the first to betray the Baron. Not only that, he sells the Baron's information to others. And he himself is drowning in debt. Lloyd thinks, how is this trash even a senior knight? Out loud, he says, "What do you think we're doing?" Newman frowns. "I can't believe you're making soldiers do such meaningless work. As a senior knight, I cannot allow this." Lloyd replies calmly, "I have the Baron's permission." Newman sneers. "I don't know how you fooled the Baron. But looking at you, it's obvious. You're using this army for your own benefit. Am I wrong?" Lloyd smiles. "You're absolutely right." Then his tone changes. "And now, you're about to get beaten." Hearing this, Newman grinds his teeth in anger. Suddenly, Lloyd scoops up dirt with his shovel and throws it straight at Newman's face. Everyone freezes. Even Newman can't believe what just happened. His anger explodes. Did you just try to insult a senior knight? But Lloyd ignores him, mocking him instead. He spins his shovel and points it forward. "Let's have a duel." For Newman, this is too much. He accepts, thinking, "You're going to regret this." Later,